Joining us now from the Australian capital, Canberra, is Jennifer Parker. She's an Adjunct Fellow in Naval Studies at the University of New South Wales. Really good to have you with us, Jennifer. Washington is framing this latest seizure as enforcement of sanctions, but does intercepting a vessel that may not itself be sanctioned cross a legal or operational red line?
Well, look, thank you very much for having me on. Yes, you're right. And Washington haven't been clear about their legal justification for this boarding. Sanctions from unilateral sanctions from a country are not a legal justification under international maritime law to conduct a boarding operation. But there are a few legal justifications, one of which, the MV Skipper, that we saw boarded 10 days ago, was stateless. So it wasn't registered to a flag. In that case, under the UN Convention on Law of the Sea, you can board that vessel in international waters. Today's vessel does seem to be flagged to Panama, so registered with Panama. If Panama gave permission to the US for that boarding before it was conducted, then it may well be consistent with international maritime law. If they didn't give permission and it is flagged to Panama, then it's not. So that's really the threshold question. We do tend to find with these vessels that are flagged to what's called flags of convenience, so countries where they don't really have much of a connection, that often those states do allow for the boarding. So that's kind of the threshold legal question. It's actually irrelevant in terms of international law whether the US had the vessel as sanctioned or not.
On, I guess, a more broader note, how risky is this growing US military presence around Venezuela, particularly when tankers, crews and third-party nations are involved?
Look, I think this is the really important question. We've seen different phases of what is very clearly a US pressure campaign on Venezuela. We saw the military build-up commencing in August with a US aircraft carrier. We saw them say that they were focused on counter-narcotics operations, but you don't need an aircraft carrier for counter-narcotics operations. We've now moved into this new phase, which Donald Trump said on Tuesday was a naval blockade. This is not a naval blockade under international law. It looks like some sort of quarantine. Whether these boardings of these tankers are legal or not is kind of a separate question to this pressure campaign. And we are very much in a dangerous phase. This is impacting other countries. This 1.8 million barrels worth of oil on this vessel, the MV Century, today was headed to China. We have also heard in previous weeks comments from President Trump about potential land strikes against drug cartels. So certainly we are entering a dangerous phase. The other angle of this too that is important to acknowledge is that this motor vessel Century is part of what's called a shadow fleet. Now, shadow fleets are tankers that go around the world. In fact, 20% of oil tankers around the world are suspected to be shadow fleet tankers. These are vessels that don't tend to comply with maritime regulations, tend to be a lot older, often over 20 years old, tend to be, not compliant with maritime safety, create environmental issues. In fact, this vessel that was boarded today was not indicating its position correctly. So all vessels over a certain size need to use their automatic identification safety. This tells everybody what their position is, where they're flagged, etc. This vessel had been faking its position to be somewhere completely different. Now, that doesn't give a justification for boarding, but there is also this other issue of these dangerous tankers that don't comply with international law that are transiting the world. And this vessel is very much one of those shadow tankers.
Okay, Jennifer Parker, we'll have to leave it there. Thanks so much again for joining us on the program.